All right, so welcome to this last talk of the day. I hope you still have a bit of energy, and I hope I don't have too many Beyonce fans, because I'm going to do some finger pointing. Like, I'll keep it to a minimum, but still. So first, obviously, thank you to the sponsors. We've had a great day, and we're super lucky, so thank you very much. And to tell you a bit about myself, so I'm Garance Flore. I'm giving you two names because I'm French, and Garance, I like it, but I'm aware that nobody can pronounce it. It just combines all the impossible to pronounce French sounds, right? So call me Flore. It's perfectly fine. I like it as well. It's my second name, and at work that's what everybody calls me. Don't worry. You also have here my Twitter handle, and I'm going to put some links there of articles or tools that I will mention during the talk, so you can find them later if you're interested. So first, let's go right in. What's wrong with Beyonce? When I was Googling and preparing this talk, I looked for this exact sentence, and I found a lot of results. Looks like a lot of things are wrong with her. But the best results ever was this article from The Mirror. It's kind of old, it's 5 years old already, but just look at this title. She raises concern as she looks confused at basketball game. Like, sounds like there's something really wrong, right? So what made this article really cool is that it had a video. So you can see her looking really confused, apparently. And the quality was like that originally. It didn't go bad with me screenshotting it. That's how it was. Another thing that was really cool about this article was that it came with readers' comments. And those were the actual readers' comments. Illuminati mind control, like not even a sentence, just that. Or she looks like a patient at the crazy ward. I don't know, she had a song in her head maybe? Or she's making her next album in her head, which made the most sense if you ask me. But remember, if you have a song stuck in your head, be careful. Might be the Illuminati controlling you. So that's a lot of fun, but it's not what I'm going to talk about, unfortunately. There's no computer science here, no accessibility. What I'm going to talk about is that earlier this year, on the 3rd of January, there was a class action that was filed against her website, claiming that her website violates the Americans with Disabilities Act because it's impossible for a woman who is blind to do her shopping on her website. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, it's something that we have in all the countries, right? It's what guarantees for persons with disabilities that they can be fully integrated in our society, that they they're not discriminated against, and that they can live independently. Now, what's different in the US is that this act also concerns the web. We don't have that in Europe. And the way you measure whether a website is accessible and does not discriminate is with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the WCAG. So that's something, it's a standard developed by the W3C, so like CSS and HTML. And it's not hard rules. It's not a specification. It's just a list of things to do to make your website accessible. And it doesn't guarantee anything. You can do everything, and hopefully it means your website will be accessible. Maybe it won't really be, but it's going to be pretty good. So that's the best we have to measure accessibility for regarding to the law. So web accessibility, what is it, right? You all know about physical accessibility, how in the bus you need to have a ramp so that the person who is in a wheelchair can go on and off the bus easily. How persons who are blind, they have a device so that the traffic lights can beep when they get near them so that they can cross safely without getting help from anybody else. So how does that work on the web? Pick in your head a website that you go on every day. Like for me, it would be Twitter, it can be a newspaper, anything. And now think. How do you think that someone who is blind can access that website and can read the same content as you read every day? Did you ever pause and think about it? Because now is the time. This is the talk for it. Second question. Now let's pick your favorite YouTube channel. How do you think that someone who is deaf can enjoy the same YouTube channel that you follow, the same vlogs? Or maybe even someone who just doesn't speak Spanish. Do you think that they can still enjoy the same jokes, consume the same content on YouTube as what you do? Other example, what about someone who has an arm paralyzed? Like, look, they can do amazing things. Like, I can't do that. But can they easily go on Twitter and follow tweets or send some with only one arm? Or is it really hard for them? And final example, that's like an invisible disability. But what about someone who has ADHD? If you have a really short attention span and you're on Facebook, how do you think that you manage to just extract the interesting content out of everything that is popping left and right, the videos playing, the advertising, everything? So all this is web accessibility. But it's not just for all those people, it's also for all of us. Because we're able-bodied now, but what if tomorrow you just break your right arm and you're right-handed? Does that mean that you can't go on Facebook anymore because you can't use a mouse? Think about it. Or what if you break your glasses? Does that mean that you just can't read the newspaper until you go and buy new ones? So in short, I like this definition of web accessibility. It's shamelessly taken from Wikipedia, nothing fancy. But so web accessibility is about including as many people as possible. It's about thinking about all your users and how diverse they are. And it's about stopping thinking that your users are just 30-year-old persons who have a 25-inch screen and who know about computers. Your users are anybody, people you've never met. And to achieve an accessible web, it requires the whole links in the chain of web development to be involved. So in the design, in the coding, and in the testing. In fact, it's the same thing as for performance that everybody is obsessed with, and everybody thinks performance is so important, and we're going to lose our users if our website is not performant. Well, accessibility is the same thing. If only the developer thinks about it for performance, for example, the developer might try to make only one API call to retrieve the minimum data possible, but if that data is 3 gigabytes big, can't help much. And if the designers put a lot of loading spinners to make it pretty while we wait, but the developers don't care and put, I don't know, sleep statements everywhere, well, the users are just going to leave. And it's the same thing with web accessibility. So this is what web accessibility is for. And there is this organization, WebAEM, that earlier this year they did this project, the Project Million, where they analyzed the top 1,000,000 homepages, top in traffic, in order to check them for accessibility errors, like through an automated tool, just going through all of them and checking what happens. So I made you a selection of the websites I could think of to see what is the current state of the web. First, LinkedIn. 1 error. That's pretty good. BBC News, 3. Amazon.com, that's the American Amazon, 7. Facebook on the homepage, 10. Instagram goes with Facebook, 14. WordPress.com, 18. We're slowly growing. LinkedIn, once you're connected, 27. So like you can sign up, but whether you can use it, not sure. GitHub, 28. Twitter, 37. Amazon, the Spanish one this time, 40. So it looks the same, right? But no, it's completely different. Apparently, if you're Spanish and you have a disability, Amazon is not for you. SoundCloud, 77. Yahoo, 77 as well. The Washington Post, 112. We're talking about a website which business is text and images next to it. Like there shouldn't be anything extraordinary there. Alibaba, 118, so still better than Amazon. The New York Times, 138, again, just a newspaper. BuzzFeed, 153. Reddit, 178. Samsung, so like that's a marketing landing page, right? 218. Where are they even putting them? Google Play, 545. So you do not download an app if you need web accessibility. And top of the top, I did not find anything better than that. Stack Overflow, 932. So if you're a developer, you don't get help on Stack Overflow. To breathe a little, though, to be relaxed a bit more, Wikipedia homepage, 0. So like, it's possible. If you just care about it, you can do it. It's not a trick. So out of these top million homepages, on average, there was 60 errors per page. And 98% of the websites had errors. That means that only 2% of the top million homepages care about accessibility and do something about it. So yeah, my talk is about Beyonce, but it's not just her, it's the whole web. I'm going to take example from her website, but I could have taken them from any website that I go on every day. And just to finish on that, if you are optimistic about those 2% of websites that don't have errors, it is totally possible to pass those tests and still be completely inaccessible. Because we're talking about what a script that runs on an AWS machine can detect. We're not talking about real users actually trying it out. So now you know that who an accessible web is for, and you know that most of the web is not ready for it. But how do people who have those disabilities I mentioned are actually using the web? The first example that most of you probably know is screen readers. So this is for blind persons. Basically, it outputs in audio whatever is on the screen. It's not specific to your browsers. It's for the whole operating systems. And there are a lot of brands. It's basically like browsers. And we have to think about all of them, like browsers. So it's pretty hard. I won't hide that. Brand examples. JAWS, it's for Windows only, and it's really expensive, which makes it really hard for us developers to test on it. But it's very important because they have a lot of deals with schools and governments, so most persons who are blind will know this screen reader and know how to use it. Another example would be NVDA. This one is also only for Windows, but it's free and open source. So it's like the Mozilla of screen readers. And last example that I wanted to give you is VoiceOver. This comes shipped on all your Apple devices. So if you have a Mac, if you have an iPhone, you have VoiceOver, so you can try it out. It's free, well, if you have a MacBook. And I really encourage you to try it out once to see what happens. It's quite incredible. And now, how do they actually work? I said they read what's on the screen, right? So for this, you can navigate through a web page with your keyboard. So like you press the tab key and you go from link to link, and then you can jump to see the headers of the page to just jump to the content, or you can go directly to the footer of the page if what you want is the legal information, anything you want. Although that only works if you use semantic HTML. Because I'm saying you jump from header to header, but that's if in your HTML you said it's a header. If it's visually in bold and really big, but it's just a div, a software can't understand anything out of it. And something that is incredible about screen readers is that they speak extremely fast. The average English speaker is like 130, 50 words per minute. But you know how we read much faster than we speak? Well, it's the same thing. In order to be efficient and not lose a billion hours being on the web for blind persons, they usually set their screen readers at something like 450 words per minute. So if that works, I will give you an example of what that sounds like. I have no clue what it says. I got this audio file a while ago, and I have no clue what it says. So yeah, that's a lot of training. But if you try it out yourself, you can just set to the speed you want, don't worry. So you can put it at a regular English-speaking speed, or Spanish, you choose your language, and you can see what happens. Now, second assistive technology is just screen magnifying. So that's for persons who are not completely blind, but who need to zoom in as much as possible. On average, we estimate that your website, it should be able to zoom it in at 200%. So it won't look the same. It won't be as pretty, but that's OK. What you want is that everybody can use it, not that everybody is delighted by your UX. And something important to consider for those users is to not have images of text. Because if you have text inside an image and you zoom that in, it's going to be all pixelized, right? And so probably they won't be able to read it. And there are a lot more different assistive technology. This, for example, so that's the Women Takemakers website a few months ago with all the colors inverted. And well, congrats, we can still read everything, no problem. Well, with a good resolution. Here, yeah. Another example, and this one is a bit extreme, I can't see much. It's a mouse stick. So that sounds a bit weird, but so if it's persons who are completely paralyzed, but who can still like move their head and their neck, they can have a stick in their mouth, and with it, they can tap on keyboards or on a mouse, and this way they can access the web normally. Except, obviously, that's like really slow. So if your app has really complex navigation systems or a lot of very specific things to tap on, they're going to leave, and they won't come back on your website. They will just find something that is easier to use. Another example is voice recognition. This is something that we all use now, right? We have Alexa, we have Google Home, Siri, whatever. But you can also use that to navigate the web. And it's really cool. Like, you can fill your form and say, OK, submit that form for me. But again, it only works if the big green button that we see that clearly says submit, if that button is in the HTML actually marked as a submit button. Otherwise, the software can't do anything. And other example, just to tell it exists, is a trackball mouse. Anybody can use it. It works like a regular mouse, except you have on the one side the ball to move your cursor to wherever you want it to be, and then separate from it you have the buttons to click. So that works like a normal user, except again it's a bit slow, and you might be less precise, because if you use that, probably you have tremors or something like that. So big buttons for those persons, please. All right, ooh, that's impossible to read. So top offenders. From the Beyonce website, I selected a couple of top offenders from her website. The first thing is this image. So that's one image on the very top of the store of the website. When you get on, that's what you see. And this is how it makes me feel. Because you can't stop it. It's an image. It's not a carousel. It's just a GIF that goes on and on and on and on. You can't stop it. You can't really scroll down because it's there at the very top and really big. So let's see the code behind this. It's actually really good. This is material for a zero-error website when you analyze it with an automated tool. There's a link. There is text inside the link that tells you where the link goes. There's an image. The image has an alt text. It's quite perfect. So let's see in more details. What's good about it? Images must have an alt text. It's perfectly fine if your alt text is empty. If your image doesn't mean anything, you don't have to describe it. That's OK. If your image means anything, you describe it, and that's great too. Either you describe your image or you describe the purpose of your image. Because, for example, if you're a travel website and you have an image of a paradise-like beach with cocktails on it to advertise for your trips to, I don't know, to the Caribbean, you don't really want to say, this is a picture of a beach in the Caribbean. You want to say, we offer dreamlike experiences. So that's how you do an alt text. And you can also put the attributes without assigning anything to it. That's also perfectly fine. So you have a lot of choice to do that right. And they did that right. Another thing that is great about this snippet is that links must not be empty. You know how I said that you can just jump from link to link? Well, if you arrive on a link and your screen reader says link empty, you are never going to click on that, right? So they also do that great. Now, what they do wrong, no images of text, like I said. Because we have this GIF with this promo code flashing every, I don't know, 10 seconds or whatever. Well, if this is written too small for you to grab it, you try to zoom in, and maybe you won't be able to see it anymore. Well, then, too bad for you, no promo code. Or maybe it actually goes too fast. We should be able to stop the movement on a page, because maybe that promo code came too fast and you can't read it. So here, the only choice you have is to just stay in front of the screen, wait until it comes back, hope that maybe this time you will manage to read it fast enough. And if you still can't, well, you wait another 30 seconds until it comes back and try again. Or you abandon and you don't shop there. Other thing that this snippet does bad is that relevant images must have an alternative text. I said it's fine that it's empty, and that's true. Except in this case, that image had text for a promo code, for details about how the promo works. Well, this is important. This is relevant information. You need to share it with all your users. So this should have been in the alternative attributes. Now, second example, I suspect you won't see much. We'll see. It's about interactions. How can you, on the Beyonce store website, how does it go to use either a mouse or a keyboard? I made two GIFs. So the first one is me with a mouse. And you can kind of see my mouse in blue. I go through the menu. I can click on something. I navigate. It all works. But now, with a keyboard, I tried to make you a visual keyboard on the side. You can see I'm tapping tab. But I was incapable of finding again that sub-menu that I had before on the mouse. It just disappears. It's impossible to find it. You can see where I am, maybe with the menu items are like gray instead of black when I'm focusing on them. But it's very subtle again. So let's see the code behind this. Again, it looks not too bad, but first offender, this empty link. What did I say? Links must not be empty. Because if you arrive, you go from link to link, and you get to this one. Maybe it had some text, and it was interesting, so you say, OK, I'll click. And then nothing happens. You just click, but nah. So what are you going to do, right? Also, like I said, links must lead somewhere. No, I mixed them up. So links must lead somewhere, because if you click, something needs to happen. Otherwise, you have no clue what you're doing. But also, links must not be empty, because if you get there and it doesn't describe where it's going, you're never going to click there. Let's see where I am. Yes. Then, second part of this snippet, this navigation. It's actually really good. This is how you do nested navigation. You have your list, and inside of it, you have another list. That's perfect. Except, when you do that, you need to plan for keyboard input as well. You can't just listen on click, because then you're excluding everybody who doesn't use a mouse. And again, that's not just disabled persons. Sometimes I just don't want to reach for my mouse, or the battery is out. Well, I still want to do something. So I could go round and round and give you a bunch of other examples, but I thought that was enough. That gives you the idea of it. And I just want to finish by giving you a bunch of links and interesting resources that you will also find on my Twitter if you want to check them out. So 3 amazing Twitter accounts to follow. The first one is Leonie Watson. She's a developer. She's also part of the W3C, and she happens to be blind. She used to be sighted, and she lost her sight, I don't know, during her adult life. And so she has this really amazing perspective because she knows of both sides. Then Molly Watt. she's a UX consultant, and she happens to be both blind and deaf. So again, she has amazing insights on what it is like for a person with a disability to navigate the web and life in general. She has a guide dog. Like, it happens to her that at the airport they're like, no, you can't take your guide dog in the plane. She's like, yes, I can. And the same thing happens over and over again. And so following her really gives you insights on what it is like and helps you to think about it. And finally, the Paciello Group, which is a company that does trainings and audits, and they share a lot of really interesting articles and news about web accessibility in general. Then, if you're into reading a lot more, so those links are on my Twitter. First, the How to Meet the WCAG 2. So this is a link from the W3C. And it just explains you every guideline one by one and how to check that box, how to make your website accessible. Then the Inclusive Toolkit. This is more for designers. It's a series of tools and of exercises to help you design your personas and to help you build your website design-wise. And finally, on the tech side, the Inclusive Components, which is a library of HTML and CSS. HTML and JavaScript more than CSS. In order to build navigation menus, for example, that are accessible. And to improve your project today, if you're a developer, there are a lot of tools available that you can just plug in your continuous integration and just see the result, just like Lighthouse for performance, for example. So Pally is one that is very easy to use, and it's free and open source. Tan.io, it's also a company that does trainings and audits for you. And finally, Wave, which is developed by WebAEM, the company I mentioned at the beginning, who did this Project Million. They both have a browser extension and an API. And again, they do trainings and audits. So that's it. Thank you very much. And I hope you learned something.
For everyone that works in web development, think well about it because we're all getting older and that's going to be relevant in a few years. Questions? I know there is one question over there. Is there any law about this, or if you don't go accessible, it's like your company problem?
That's country by country. In Europe, it's mandatory for banks and public services, and that's it. For example, in Australia, it's all websites. It really depends. The trend is to become more and more mandatory, but it's slow. It's slow making.
Any more questions? Ines.
Ask you maybe some tips and tricks about the testing, because voiceover drives me crazy. I don't know if you have any, because I usually use that for testing, and then just after 10 minutes I just get, I just have to turn it off.
Well, to start, to get the worst things first, what I like to do is to just remove all the CSS from your project. So you can already see if everything still has meaning and you can still do everything. There's a good chance that the screen reader will be able to pick up on everything. And then you still have to use the screen reader. You don't have a choice if you want to do everything. And for that, just train. They have, Apple has trainings on how to use it and to help you get the hang on of it, help you use the shortcuts properly. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Anybody else? More questions? No? So again, thank you very much, Garance.
All right.